You know, in our world of constant pings, notifications, and just endless streams of information, a totally different kind of intelligence is becoming the most valuable currency out there. It's not about how much you know anymore, but really how deeply you can think. This is the new IQ, and honestly, understanding it could be the key to unlocking your absolute full potential.
So, let me ask you something, straight up. Right now, in your work and your life, how are you operating? Are you a node or are you an architect? Seriously, the answer to this one question could change everything about how you create value in the world.
Okay, so this slide breaks it down perfectly. It shows the two fundamental ways of being in our modern economy. On one side, you've got the reactionary node. This person is constantly responding, always managing their time, and doing what we call shallow work. But on the other side, you have the original architect. This person creates from silence, produces incredibly deep value, and manages not their clock, but their entire neural environment. Two completely different worlds.
So let's dive into the state where, let's be honest, most of us find ourselves, a lot of the time, without even realizing it. This is the world of the reactionary node. It has become the default setting for pretty much everyone in the knowledge economy today. Does this feel familiar? I bet it does. It's that feeling of your entire day being run by your inbox. It's bouncing from one tiny task to the next, feeling super busy but not really productive. Your attention becomes this pinball, just ricocheting between emails, Slack messages, and notifications. And the real cost here? Even when you try to switch back to your important work, a part of your focus, what scientists call attention residue, is still stuck on that last distraction. You're never ever fully present. That right there is the signature of the reactionary node.
But what if there was a way out of that cycle? Well, the good news is there is. And the solution isn't some new time management hack. It's about building a defensive structure for your mind. It's about constructing what we're going to call a fortress of focus.
And this quote just nails it. We tend to think of focus as, a mood we have to get into, something fragile that can just vanish. But this idea reframes it completely. Focus isn't a feeling, it's an environment you build. It's a wall, it's a barrier you deliberately engineer to keep all of that distracting noise out.
So what's the protocol for working inside this fortress? It's called deep work. And here's the official definition. It's performing cognitively demanding tasks in a state of distraction-free concentration that pushes your capabilities right to their limit. It's not just about avoiding social media for an hour, it's about pushing your brain to its absolute edge.
So what's the magic here? What actually happens inside this fortress of focus that makes it so ridiculously powerful? Well, to understand that, we need to look at the mechanics of how our brain operates when we finally eliminate those distractions. Just think of your brain as a super powerful computer, your own neural operating system. In a normal noisy environment, its processing power is scattered, right? It's dealing with a million background apps at once. But when you insulate it inside the fortress, you allow that OS to shut down all the noise and consolidate 100% of its power on the one task that truly matters.
Now, this whole process has a name, the principle of resource concentration, and it's a beautifully simple four-step system. Let's walk through it. First, you have to identify that critical 20% of your work, the tasks that deliver 80% of the results. Step 2, you build your fortress to completely insulate your mind from everything else. No distractions. Step 3, you concentrate every last drop of your cognitive energy on that single task. And the outcome? Step 4, you achieve a result that isn't just a little better, it's disproportionately unbelievably better.
So how much better are we talking about here? The analysis suggests a potential multiplier of 10 times. 10 times. We're not talking 10% more quality, we're talking 10x the output, the value, compared to someone who's stuck in that state of constant distraction. That is the staggering difference between deep and shallow work. And here's the really wild part. This isn't just some productivity hack, it's a biological one. When you engage in deep work, you are literally changing your brain. You are wrapping the neural circuits for your most important skills in something called myelin. Think of it like insulation on a wire. It makes those connections faster, stronger, and way more automatic. You are hardwiring yourself for high performance.
Which brings us to the final transformation, the real payoff. When you consistently practice deep work, you don't just get more done. No, you fundamentally change who you are in the professional world. You become the original architect.
And this, right here, is the core thesis. In an economy that is just flooded with shallow, easy-to-replicate work,
the rare ability to shut out the world and produce something of profound value that isn't just another skill anymore. It is the new measure of intelligence. It's the new IQ.
So what does it really mean to be an original architect? Well, it means your work is unique. It's hard to replicate. It means you've stopped obsessing over your calendar and you've started curating your mental space. You create the silence where true innovation can actually happen, that quiet space where you can finally hear yourself think and begin to weave those golden threads of new, brilliant ideas.
So, we'll leave you with this one question to think about. If you were to build your own fortress, if you were to finally silence all that constant external noise and just allow your mind to dive deeper than it's ever been able to go before, what would you build? What masterpiece is just waiting inside you, ready to be created?
You know, the world we live in is practically designed to distract you. So the big question is, are you actually producing work that matters? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful framework that helps you shift from just reacting to everything to actually building your world. All right, let's just jump right in with a question for you. Think about your typical workday for a sec. Does it feel like a never-ending flood of notifications, emails, and meetings? Are you spending your precious energy just responding and putting out fires instead of, creating something new? If that sounds familiar, you might be stuck operating as what we call a reactionary node. And luck, this state of constant reaction, it's the default for so many of us. We get caught on this hamster wheel of shallow work where we feel incredibly busy. But at the end of the day, we haven't really moved the needle on the stuff that truly counts. Okay, this is where you see the huge shift in mindset. The reactionary node is totally obsessed with managing time, right? Just trying to cram more and more into every single hour. But the original architect, they're playing a different game entirely. They focus on managing their neural environment, basically creating the perfect mental conditions for brilliance. And the outcome? Well, it's the difference between average, forgettable work and creating rare value that nobody else can easily replicate. So how in the world do we make that leap? Well, here's the secret. It's not about willpower. It's not about just trying harder. It's about building a system, a real structure to guard our most valuable asset, our attention. And the heart of this entire system is this powerful protocol called deep work. Now, this is way more than just focusing. It's about intentionally pushing your brain to its absolute limit, all while you're in a completely distraction-free zone. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly nails the core idea. We tend to think of focus as this fuzzy feeling we have to somehow summon up. But this framework says, no. Focus isn't a feeling. It's a structural barrier that you have to build between your mind and all the noise out there. I want you to literally picture it like this. You are an engineer constructing a fortress. The walls are your daily routines. The moat is your scheduled time where you're just unavailable. And the whole point of this fortress is to create this impenetrable space where your mind can finally do its most important work. Okay, so what is actually happening inside this fortress that makes the work so much better? How does it create this high-performance mental environment? Let's take a look under the hood. So, inside your fortress, a really cool 3-step process starts to happen. First, by insulating your mind from all that external noise, your brain's operating system gets to consolidate its power. Then all that focused energy goes to work strengthening your key skill circuits. It's kind of like paving a neural superhighway for your most critical abilities, making them way faster and way more efficient. Now, what's fueling this whole engine? It's a principle from systems thinking called resource concentration, and it's a beautifully simple idea. You apply 100% of your energy to the tiny handful of tasks, that 20%, that are going to give you the most significant results. And the impact of this, it is absolutely staggering. We are not talking about a little 10 or 20% improvement here. By concentrating your resources like this, you can produce work that is literally 10 times better in quality and impact than what the average distracted professional is putting out. So here's the crucial thing to get. This isn't just another productivity hack. This is a complete transformation of who you are as a professional and the kind of value you can bring to the world. Once you start operating from inside your fortress, the old rules they fall away. The game is no longer about trying to squeeze more tasks into an hour. That whole way of thinking becomes obsolete. Instead, your main job, your most important job, becomes being a guardian. You actively manage your mental space, making sure your mind has the quiet, uninterrupted environment it needs to actually think, to innovate, to create. And this, right here, is the final transformation. This is the payoff. You stop being just a node that processes incoming stuff, and you become an architect who designs and builds original, valuable things for the world. Let's be honest, in an economy flooded with shallow, easy-to-replicate work, the ability to go deep, well, that's the new IQ. It's basically a superpower. It lets you produce rare value, makes your contributions impossible to ignore, and it gives your mind the space it needs to weave together those golden threads of real innovation. And maybe the ultimate reward is this incredible state of flow where everything feels almost effortless. Once your fortress is built and your system is running, the struggle just disappears. That friction of getting started and actually doing the work, it vanishes, and your mind is finally free to dive to depths that are simply unreachable when you're stuck on the noisy surface. So, we're going to end with this thought. The question isn't really if you can find focus. The real question is, once you've built your fortress, once the noise of the world can no longer reach you, what extraordinary thing will you build?
Hey there, and welcome. Before we jump in, I want to invite you to do something really simple with me. Just take a breath. Go on. In and out. Okay, let's get into it.
So let's start with the most important message right out of the gate. I really want you to let this sink in. You are allowed to be not okay. It sounds so simple, right? But for a lot of us, it's the permission slip we've been waiting for our entire lives.
Because so much of the time, we feel this incredible pressure to perform, don't we? We put on this heavy mask of happiness, and behind it, there's this silent fatigue. It's this deep exhaustion that comes from the constant, quiet work of pretending everything's fine when it's just not.
And that brings us to this really powerful idea. Think about it for a second. You are a complex human being. You are not a marketing campaign for happiness. Your life isn't some brand that has to be perfectly curated and presented to the world with a permanent smile plastered on.
Let's just break this down, because it really gets to the core of it all. Over on one side, you've got the marketing campaign version of you. You know, the forced smiles, the everything is totally fine story. But then, on the other side, there's the reality of being human. That silent fatigue and that deep quiet need for someone, anyone, to just see our pain and say, yeah, that's valid.
And this need for validation, it brings us to a really crucial point. It's all about giving ourselves permission to feel everything and to finally challenge that little voice in our heads that keeps telling us we are broken.
In fact, let's get super clear about what you are not.
You are not broken just because you feel sad. You are not failing because you're experiencing anxiety. And you are definitely, absolutely not wrong for just being real. These feelings aren't a sign that something's defective. They're a sign that you're alive. What's actually happening is this. You're experiencing the full, messy, sometimes beautiful, sometimes painful spectrum of the human condition. And I really want you to hear this. There's a profound dignity in that. There's real strength in just letting yourself be fully human.
So, okay, if we're feeling all this stuff, where do we go? We usually start this desperate search for validation, right? For something or someone to just tell us we're okay. But we might be looking in all the wrong places.
The validation that we are so deeply craving, well, it's just not going to be found in some motivational quote you scroll past, or by forcing yet another smile. Real acceptance, it has to come from somewhere deeper. It's got to come from inside.
And this leads us to a huge shift in perspective. Honestly, this might be the most important part of this whole thing. It's this idea of learning to witness ourselves instead of always trying to fix ourselves.
So what in the world is witnessing? Well, it's the simple but kind of radical act of just observing your own emotions with acceptance. You see them, you acknowledge they're there, but you stop treating them like problems that you have to immediately solve or get rid of.
It's that moment when you can finally look at your own sadness or your own fear or whatever it is and say to it, honestly, I see you, and it's okay that you're here. Right here. This is where that true internal validation comes from. And from that space of just seeing yourself, you can start giving yourself these permissions. You are allowed to be messy, you're allowed to be quiet, and you are 100% allowed to be unfinished. You're a work in progress, and that is more than okay. So how does this actually change things? How does it affect our journey? Well, it completely reframes the relationship you have with your own inner world. You move from this state of war, where your emotions are enemies, to a place of curiosity, where they're just data points. This slide kind of maps out that whole mental shift. Most of us start at step 1. Our feelings are enemies we have to conquer. But the real change happens when we just stop fighting. From there, we can start seeing them as data points, information that's just trying to tell us something. And that is the beginning of the real journey toward wholeness.
You know, when you finally stop fighting yourself and just start listening, a completely new path forward starts to emerge. It's a path that isn't defined by perfection, but by this honest, compassionate acceptance of who you are, right here, in this moment.
So, I'll just leave you with this one thought to carry with you. What if your feelings aren't actually problems to be solved? What if they're just messengers, waiting patiently to be heard?
All right, let's talk about something I think we all feel but almost never say out loud. You know that constant, just draining pressure to always be okay? Well, today, we're diving into the incredible freedom that comes when you finally give yourself permission to not be.
I mean, just think about it for a second. That automatic reflex. I'm fine. How are you? How many times a week do you say that when it's not even close to the truth? That one little everyday moment? Yeah, that gets right to the very heart of what we're going to unpack today.
And that performance, right, that's what we're calling the mask of okay. It's this unspoken rule that we have to put on a show of being happy all the time. And let me tell you, it comes with a cost. A really silent, heavy one. What I love about this is just how real it is. On the one hand, you've got your true self, the messy, complicated, fascinating human being. But then there's the public self we put out there. And it can feel less like a person and more like, a nonstop marketing campaign for happiness where only the good parts make the cut. And holding up that mask day after day, it is exhausting. It creates this silent fatigue. It's a kind of burnout that doesn't come from your job or your schedule. It comes from the sheer effort of hiding your own reality from everyone, including yourself. And here's the thing you really need to get. You are not alone in this. This isn't some personal flaw, it's a huge cultural pressure we all share. Seriously, millions of us are walking around feeling like we're doing something wrong just for having a bad day, for being human.
So, okay, how do we start to break free from this? Well, it all starts with giving ourselves permission. Permission to actually feel. Permission to be exactly who you are right now, in this moment. Messy, quiet, and totally beautifully unfinished.
And this is so important to let sink in. Feeling sad doesn't mean you're broken. Experiencing anxiety doesn't mean you're failing. Not at all. These feelings aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're signs that you are a living, breathing person who's experiencing the full, rich, and sometimes really tough human condition.
There's a real dignity in that, a real strength, letting yourself feel the whole range of it. The joy, the sadness, the anger, the peace, that is an act of incredible courage. It's you deciding to step away from the performance and step into who you really are.
So often, we're looking for validation on the outside, right? We hope that some inspirational quote or just forcing a smile is going to magically fix everything. But that's just not where the real stuff is. True validation, it comes from somewhere much deeper.
So what does this actually look like in practice? It's about making a huge shift. We're going from desperately trying to fix how we feel to simply witnessing it. It's about tapping into the quiet strength of just being honest with yourself.
And it's actually pretty simple. Think of it like this. Step 1, you gently just look at that tough feeling, the overwhelm, the sadness, whatever it is. Step 2, you just acknowledge that it's there without judging it. And then step 3, you just say to it internally, I see you, and it's okay that you're here. That's it.
See, the whole point isn't to fight your feelings or bully them into disappearing. The goal is to become this compassionate observer of your own mind. You don't have to fix them, you just have to witness them. And when you start doing that, when you practice that witnessing, something really incredible starts to happen. It lets you see your inner world in a completely new light. You start seeing your emotions not as enemies, but as information.
I mean, look at this mindset shift. The old way of thinking frames emotions like sadness or anger as enemies that you have to defeat. But this new view, it sees them as data points. They're just messengers telling you something important about your experience, trying to guide you.
And that journey leads to a sense of wholeness.
But pay close attention to this definition, okay? Wholeness isn't about becoming perfectly happy 24/7 and getting rid of all the bad feelings. No way. It's about integrating every single part of your experience, the good, the bad, the light, the dark, into a more complete, authentic you. And that is what it means to get off that treadmill of forced positivity. This deep internal work, this radical emotional honesty, it's the real foundation for building a life that isn't just ordinary, but is truly and authentically yours.
So I want to leave you with this one question to take with you. The next time a difficult feeling shows up, just pause and ask yourself, what if this isn't a problem I need to solve right now? What if it's just a message I need to listen to? Naming the emotion, simply saying, I feel overwhelmed or I feel lonely, that's the first step. That honesty is where peace begins. But real mastery, that's built on systems. If you're ready to go beyond just accepting your feelings and want to learn how to build a high-performance system to navigate any emotional state with logic and purpose, then come join me on our main channel. We dive deep into things like systems thinking and cognitive engineering to turn raw emotion into fuel for an unordinary life. Let's start turning those silent struggles into your greatest strengths. Your evolution begins with the truth.